This morning, Kaylee Goncalves' sister, Olivia, reflecting on her fiery and relentless victim impact statement.
I was prepared to be arrested that day. I think that every single one of us were. Man, was he mad. That was obviously a big point of why I did what I did, to make him feel small, because he is. It actually makes me really emotional. I got up there knowing that my speech wasn't to Kaylee and Maddie, it was for them.
She says she sought out specific details to include in her speech.
I mean, I stalked the stalker. I found everything that I could from him online from the beginning of time to now. It fueled me to know that I got you pegged. I had one shot at it and I was going to make the most of it.
She certainly did. Olivia says, though, that she and many others in her family have been receiving hateful messages on their phones and social media from people who support the killer. But Olivia tells me they are undeterred and they will continue to make Kaylee and Maddie proud.
The Goncalves family has not been shy about vocalizing their disgust with Bryan Kohberger and, frankly, the whole judicial process in holding Bryan Kohberger accountable and where exactly they have felt let down by the prosecution in this case. But something truly sick happened during the July 23rd sentencing of Bryan Kohberger. Apparently, Kristi Goncalves, Kaylee's mother, received a threatening text message during the hearing. We have a lot to talk about, you guys. I am Sarah. Let's get into today's scandal. Hey everyone, what's up? It's Sarah, and this is Sarah Spills. I need to shout out one of my followers who suggested that I change the intro on this channel, saying you should change your intro to "Let's get into today's scandal." And thank you so much for the suggestion. I will. And speaking of scandal, I mean, what is more scandalous and sickening than the family of a murder victim getting trolled and threatened during the sentencing of the man that killed their daughter and sister?
I first want to ask you, though, and I noticed this, I was sitting behind you guys, and I saw Kristi, your wife, pull out her phone and look sort of disturbed, and then you guys called the deputy over, and then he was looking at your phone, and I kind of figured something bad was going on, and it turns out that it was a threatening text message that she had received during the actual sentencing while the victim impact statements were going on. And I don't want to read the whole thing because I just don't want to give glory to, whoever did this, but I do want to read a little bit so people can see what exactly happened. It says, "Sitting near you in court and watching you is a joke. You know that Bryan is innocent. Making threats to Bryan about getting raped in prison was very silly. I am in contact with a lot of serial killers, including BTK, and I've been put in contact with a wannabe serial killer who is in Moscow, Idaho, and I have given him your address."
This is so gross. Later, we are going to learn that investigators are pretty sure this came from someone out of state. So it had to be someone who was watching the proceedings and decided to play some kind of twisted game just to be an asshole. I don't know any serial killers, at least I don't think I do, but one of my favorite TV shows is Criminal Minds. I mean, I named my daughter after badass IT analyst Penelope Garcia. So from the expertise that I've gleaned from watching the show, serial killers usually don't lead with that as a descriptor of themselves. This idiot that texted Kaylee's mom insinuated someone came up to them and was like, "Hi, I'm Bob. I'm a serial killer. Got anyone you need killing?" If you know a serial killer and you don't assist in putting them in jail, what are you doing, loser? Waiting around to unleash them on whoever pisses you off on the internet? Whoever sent this text is just as big a basic, pathetic loser as Bryan Kohberger is.
And I don't think people realize, Steve, that this is the kind of stuff that you and your family, and I'd imagine the other victims too, I mean, you guys have been having to deal with this for some time, but during the actual sentencing, what did you make of it?
Yeah, the sentencing, there's definitely an element of crazy people that gravitate towards these type of events. That's why I've always hoped that the court would use force and be very careful with all the voices that they're talking to. Like, make sure that we're holding these people accountable and, be tough on them.
So are they going to do an investigation? Again, I saw the deputy take Kristi's phone. Is there any way to trace and figure out who that was? I'd imagine it wasn't really someone in the courtroom. I guess it could be, but it seems like that part was probably just made up.
Yeah, I think so as well. They just wanted to piggyback right off something she had said because it was live TV or slight delay close to live TV. And it was accurate, So we did pass it on to our lawyer, and he started working with the investigators, and they're definitely going to, or if they already haven't, track this person down, and they'll be held accountable. Just one less crazy person on the streets that try to find a family to harass. I doubt he's not around here. I've heard that he's in another state.
Okay. Well, listen, you guys are the wrong family to try to mess with. That's for sure. And I'm glad to hear that the police are taking it seriously. But like I said, I know this is something you've been dealing with really throughout. And even now with Bryan Kohberger pleading guilty and admitting it, even now these people are still doing this. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is why part of the reason we were hard on the prosecutor, because you can't look at it any other way that by hiding those details of what happened to my daughter and the other victims, it gave fuel to these people. It gave them a wishful thinking that they were like defending a PhD grad, and a master's degree and pursuing his PhD. So, people don't want to root for like a skinhead or a cop killer or ravaged drug user. But this guy could have had a persona, and I just don't understand why Thompson would have wanted to protect him by hiding these details. And I know some of the other families have already changed their opinion of the deal, knowing all the facts that have came out. So I think it's suspicious that he purposely never let this information out.
What is really heartbreaking is Kaylee's dad, Steve, acknowledged that this is something the family has been dealing with throughout this process. Wacky people drawn to this case for whatever reason feel like inserting themselves in really non-productive ways. They aren't seeking justice. They aren't trying to facilitate healing. They aren't trying to provide information or a conversation. They are just being evil for evil's sake. It's so gross. Before Bryan Kohberger pled guilty, there had been a pretty sizable following from the public that did and possibly still believe that he is innocent. I mean, I've seen the subreddits. I'd imagine that these are likely the same contingent of people that the surviving roommates responded to in their victim impact statements, who have criticized them for their apparent delay in calling 911 that day. The surviving roommates both felt like they needed to publicly offer up an excuse as to why they didn't call 911 until after 11 a.m. People in these subreddits were like, that's really sketch if they saw this guy at 4 a.m. and didn't call until after 11 a.m. I don't want to spend too much time giving this attention. Needless to say, law enforcement obviously fully cleared the surviving roommates. They are also victims of Bryan Kohberger, who admitted to the judge that he was pleading guilty because he is guilty. All of the law tubers that I follow that have been covering this case have fielded questions about what if this is a false confession? And all of them have had the consensus that no innocent person would take a plea like this with these conditions. Think about the Sarah Boone case from right here in the Orlando area where I live. She was just found guilty and sentenced to life. No parole for the second-degree murder of her boyfriend, who she zipped into a suitcase during an alleged game of hide and seek. Well, she was originally offered a deal that would have garnered her like 10 years or something like that. Hindsight being 2020, she should have taken the deal even if she felt like she was innocent, given the fact that she's life without parole now. Brian Enton from News Nation did talk about this threat to the Goncalves family again on his podcast, and there he noted that the police determined the sender of the threats was out of state.
And I had an interesting vantage point because I was sitting directly behind the Goncalveses during the sentencing. It just happened by chance. I was filing in, and they were sort of getting people into different spots because they were trying to fill the courtroom. And the spot that was open happened to be right on the victim's side, like right in the middle of the families, right behind the Goncalveses. And so it was during the victim impact statements that I saw Kristi looking at her phone and looking sort of alarmed and troubled. And then she showed Steve. And I don't know, in that moment, I kind of knew, I just had this sense that like, oh, they got some kind of like awful text or something, because why would she be showing Steve her phone during the victim impact statements when they were so focused? And then they called the deputy over, and the deputy came over, took her phone, went away and looked at it. And so when they called the deputy over, I just sort of knew, I'm like, this must be some kind of threat. And I knew that they had had threats in the past, just like awful people on the internet who have found their address or found their phone numbers. So the deputy left and then came back and said something. The deputies are super nice, by the way. And so he said something like, okay, we're going to look into it, but I got you. Don't worry, I got you. And like just in the nicest way that really calmed them down. But Steve has told me that he does believe that the authorities are taking it seriously, that they're investigating. Apparently, they've been told that it's someone who is out of state, not in the courtroom, like it said. So hopefully they'll figure out who it is and arrest the person, and then that can send a message out, hey, like this is just not cool to do this. Because for it to happen during the victim impact statements and to see Kristi and Steve so concerned, it was really awful.
Hopefully whoever sent these messages to the Goncalves family is brought up on charges, because this really isn't cool, no matter if it was a joke or not. A person like this should absolutely be made an example out of, especially as we are in an era now where at least state level trials are being streamed. People watch because here in the United States, we have a public judicial system. And I believe that that is a fundamental right for Americans to have transparency in the court system. And we need to discourage idiots from exploiting that system so that they can terrorize the families of victims of crimes. It is so nonsensical. It's like, seek help for real. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. As always, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Check out my main channel, Reality Squad, and my podcast, Mostly Harmless. Links for both of those will be in the description of this video. Follow me on Instagram, Threads, X, and TikTok at Reality Squad, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care. Have a good one. Much love.